challenge you to a duel.
It's the only argument I need.
I don't want to talk to you no more, you.
You got a lot of nerve.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated.
Stop defending him, Sean.
All right, let's go.
I'm ready for all today. Through all the pain. All the way.
Hey sleepers, and welcome to the Sleeper Wire Great Debate Show, where we do a fast debate between two players. I'm your host, Professor Chris, and with me is my wonderful, very good friend, Prophet Hoos. What's going on tonight, man?
What's going on, Chris? How you been? How was your fourth?
It was great. Yeah, it was pretty good. I got one of my colleagues in the math department. Her and her husband own a small plane that they took us up for a flight in. So it was pretty cool. We were able to see fireworks from a little plane.
Very sweet. Very sweet.
Yeah. What about you?
It was pretty nice. I was actually, it was a little unplanned. I had to pick up someone, but I was actually on the highway, and it's like it's kind of nice when you're on the highway driving. I was at the kids with us, and you're just like looking at the whole sky on fire. Just you have like all the views, and we were able to see that. Then when we got to where we were, we saw a show there, and then came back. Saw the sky on fire again, and then we lit some firecrackers as well.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. All right, so what we're going to be doing here for those of you listening for the first time, we're having an actual debate-style argument between two players. We're going to spend a few minutes arguing for our player, about 90 seconds arguing against the other person's player, and then we wrap it up with final thoughts on our player. So during draft season, as of right now, we're going to debate who we would rather draft, who we would rather have on our team. And real quick, the purpose for this debate is not for us to come to a consensus. I'm not trying to convince Hoos of my player. He's not trying to convince me of his. It's to give you guys, our wonderful listeners, legitimate arguments for and against players. Well, before we introduce the players that we are doing, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up. We're giving away a signed Antonio Brown jersey this summer, courtesy of pristineauction.com. This website is amazing. We got daily auctions for any type of memorabilia you want, whether that be sports, music, movies, everything. I went on there looking at some beautiful Colts memorabilia signed by Peyton Manning, some by Marvin Harrison, Andrew Luck. Just some amazing stuff. It's all certified. It's all authentic. You don't get anything fake or imitated. So to win this signed Antonio Brown jersey, you go onto iTunes or Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, wherever it is that you listen to us. Give us a nice review, take a screenshot of the review, and email it to sleeperwire@gmail.com. And that's it. You're entered into the contest. Then, make sure you go check out pristineauction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to the great debate here. So, today's great debate. Got two running backs with similar ADPs. Todd Gurley versus Lamar Miller. I have Todd Gurley. Hoos has Lamar Miller. Hoos, are you ready to get into this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Alright, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Alright.
Sure.
Well, I have the stopwatch up and ready to go. You ready?
Yes, I am.
Alright, 2.5 minutes on the clock. Let's go.
All right, Lamar Miller. Now, I know a lot of people are getting off the ledge with Lamar Miller. That's why he's dropping. Right? He's dropping to the fourth, fifth round now, which is insane for a guy that's been able to finish in the top, albeit it wasn't last year, but 2014, when he got that big workload from 2013, he had 177 carries. That 2013 had 700 yards, just 2 touchdowns. The following year, 2014, he had 216 attempts, almost 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. And then he followed up the year later. His rushing, his numbers went down as far as his attempts. He was under 200, still almost grabbed 1,000 yards, another 8 touchdowns. So he's always been a red zone guy. He's been a nice receiving back as well. That same year, 2015, he had 47 catches with almost 400 yards, and he had grabbed 2 touchdowns as well. Last year, his receiving numbers was pretty much as low as it's been ever since he came to the league. When he first came in, he got a 6, and then the following year 26. Last year he dropped all the way down to 31. Almost got 200 yards. But that's really where we wanted to see more of an increase for Lamar Miller. The yardage was there. He had almost 1,100 yards. The touchdowns dropped at 5. But again, this is a workhorse back. I know a lot of people were worried about Donta Foreman. I wouldn't worry about the guy that fumbles the ball a lot. They look at the coaching staff there. They're pretty much like the Patriots. They like the guy that they can count on. And Lamar Miller is that. I know he was banged up. He had some soft tissue injuries. He had an ankle problem, but they still forced him out there. He had 268 carries, and he missed those 2 games. Now, he gives you those games. He's well within that RB1 conversation. He finished 16 last year in a PPR, depending on your scoring. I just think that this is a guy, he's going to continue to have those red zone looks. He had 34 red zone runs last year, kind of what you wanted. And again, he would have led if he had those other 2 games. He may have led, been higher in the red zone category across the board, but there's a lot of room on the table. He's had time to grow. This is his second year in this offense.
All right, so there we got our arguments. Yeah, you got final thoughts. Argument for Lamar Miller. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my rebuttal here. You ready?
Ready, you go.
We talk about first-round busts. Lamar Miller was definitely a first-round bust. Last season, he was going mid-first round, and he finishes the RB19 in PPR. He had just as many single-digit fantasy games as Todd Gurley did, who I'm going to get to in a second. And Lamar Miller didn't even play weeks 16 and 17 due to injury. We all thought he was going to be this phenomenal PPR running back because, let's face it, Osweiler wasn't good. We knew he wasn't good. And everybody believed he was going to check down all the time. And it just didn't happen. And it's not like the Texans had the worst offensive line. They had the number 18 offensive line last season according to Pro Football Focus, so they were pretty much average. They weren't awful. The only stats where Miller beat out Gurley last season was in rushing yards and yards per carry. He had 10 fewer catches, 1 fewer rushing touchdown. He just didn't have a good season, even with a better offensive line and a slightly better quarterback. Pro Football Focus has the Texans ranked as the number 29 offensive line this season. So, the offensive line is going for number 18 last season and number 29 this season. It's just, there are too many things about Lamar Miller that are going against him and not enough things for him to make me want to draft him over Gurley. Alright, so there's our arguments for and against Lamar Miller. We're going to go ahead and move over to Todd Gurley. So after a great rookie campaign in 2015, where he had 1,106 yards and 10 touchdowns on only 229 carries in 14 games as a starter, Gurley clearly struggled last year. We all know this. He was one of the biggest busts of the draft last season, especially when you consider that some people were taking him number 1 overall. Last year, 278 carries, only 885 yards and 6 touchdowns. He still finished as the RB15 in PPR, but that's a bust for where you were drafting him. However, that doesn't have much to do with Todd Gurley himself. His offensive line was just atrocious. They graded as the 27th ranked offensive line in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus has this stat called stuffed, which is the percentage of plays where the running back was hit at or before the line of scrimmage. Rams running backs were stuffed on 22% of all their running plays, which was 28th in the league. Think about that. More than 1/5 the time, Gurley was hit at the line or in the backfield. That's got nothing to do with him. Gurley's always had great vision. That's his offensive line just letting people go by. One of their biggest issues on their offensive line was Greg Robinson, who surrendered 8 sacks and 40 QB pressures and was among the worst run-blocking tackles in the league last season. He's now gone. The Rams have brought in veteran Andrew Whitworth, a huge improvement. That jump from Robinson to Whitworth is one of the biggest offseason upgrades at any position in the NFL. The Rams now have the number 18 ranked offensive line going into the 2017 season instead of 27. That's a big improvement, going from 27 last year to being ranked number 18 this year. Last year, Gurley had 33 rushes inside the red zone, scoring 5 of his 6 touchdowns inside the 20, 33 may not sound like a lot, but we just did a great debate that included DeMarco Murray. Murray had 40 rushing attempts, and so Gurley only had 7 fewer. When you consider how awful the Rams were last season, they weren't in the red zone very often. But when they were, they handed the ball to Gurley. All 5 of Gurley's touchdowns came from inside the 5-yard line. This is the guy they give the ball to on the goal line. Gurley gets the ball in the red zone. Gurley gets the ball on the goal line. Nobody is threatening him for that job. When it comes to receiving, Gurley had a... All right, so
Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley, give me your thoughts against him.
He was actually going to be one of my busts on our last show. And I know Nick was asking. He was like, well, can you say a guy is a bust twice? And I said, yeah, definitely. I just think where he's being drafted right now, not saying, he won't be a guy you can use. He'd be a guy you can use. You were able to use him last year just as like a flex. You just didn't want to have him as your starting running back, like your number one. He had 6 touchdowns last year. He didn't get to the 1,000 yards like he was able to do the year before. He's not gonna. I think that the coordinator there, Matt LaFleur, I think he wants to use another running back, kind of like in that Chris Thompson capacity. And they have Lance Dunbar there. I'm not saying Lance Dunbar is gonna take a bunch of work away, but he is there, and I think they're gonna use him. And I just don't think I can buy into him as a second round guy. And when Lamar Miller is, you can grab him so much later. You can take a guy, that's going to provide probably more value. A guy you can trust a little bit more.
Cool. Well, there you got our thoughts for and against Todd Gurley. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up with our final thoughts. Let's take it back to Lamar Miller here. Give me your final thoughts on Lamar Miller.
All right, again, Lamar Miller, he's a guy, that was finally able to get over 1,000 yards. We wanted to see him with the full workload. He didn't quite get it in Miami, but he was still efficient with his numbers. He wasn't as efficient last year, but again, it was his first season in 268 carries. I don't believe that, Texans is, the type of team that spells their running backs by 30-40%. I don't see it. I think he's going to get spelled, just as he got spelled last year. And that's what they've been saying. They haven't been, saying anything else more. The Foreman, the rookie, he's got a ton to learn. So I just think that the value right now is insane for Lamar Miller. The fact that you're able to get him in the 4th or 5th round is just insane. It's ridiculous. The guy, yes, his touchdowns went down, but he is a guy that's pretty much getting 8 touchdowns every game. I mean every year. So I think his second year in the offense, now that he'll be healthy, he wasn't healthy last year. He had toe issues, soft tissue issues here and there. I think this is going to be a year that he can come into the, to the season and really be relied on even more.
Yeah, all right, some good thoughts for Lamar Miller. Jumping back to Gurley, finishing up what I was talking about earlier. Gurley had a very respectable 43 catches, 327 yards last season. That's more than Miller's 31 for 188. Young quarterbacks tend to check down more. Goff is certainly a young quarterback. He was also fairly bad his rookie season, but he was under pressure on nearly every passing play. That's good for checking down to the running back. With an upgraded offensive line, Goff is going to have more time to make good passes. The Rams by no means have a threatening passing game, but Robert Woods, Tavon Austin, and Cooper Kupp aren't necessarily the worst receivers. Tyler Higbee can be a solid tight end for Goff as well. So they do have... I'm not going to say they have a threat at wide receiver. I'm trying to make this sound good, but they do have options.
You're
Yeah, he does have options, right? That's a good way to put it. Fantasy wise, Todd Gurley put up double-digit points in PPR, 11 of his 16 games. His increase in receptions from 21 to 43 was definitely a big factor there. The Rams have stated they want to get him more involved in the passing game, and Gurley's preparing for that as well. I currently have him as my number 11 running back. We have him as our number 12 in our sleeper wire rankings. I'm not saying I necessarily want Gurley as my RB1, but if I'm sitting there in the third round after taking Brown and Amari Cooper to start the draft, I'd be perfectly fine having a solid running back in Todd Gurley to go along with those stud wide receiver ones. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of The Great Debate. A couple things before we go. I want to encourage you guys to go to www.sleeperwire.com, check out our weekly rankings, submit a question to the Sleeperwire crew. We get back to you within 24 hours. You can find us on Twitter at Sleeperwire Show. I'm on there at Seymour Sleeperwire. Hoos is on there at Prophet Hoos, or Hoos the Prophet, I'm sorry. Check us out on Sleeperbot. I'm Professor Chris on there. Hoos is Prophet Hoos on there. The Fantasy Life, I'm also Professor Chris. Hoos, you are Prophet Hoos as well, I believe.
Yeah, or Who's the Prophet, either one.
Yeah, check both. And then on Instagram at Professor Chris SW. Sleeperbot just had a massive update. Everything there is great. We have a Sleeperwire channel. There's a Prophet Hoos channel. I have a Professor Chris channel. Yeah, it's fantastic. So go check it out. Join our channels. You can chat directly with us. Lastly, I want to remind you guys about the reason why we do this. We do this for our buddy Rob, one of the Sleeperwire guys who's been struggling with chronic Lyme disease for most of his life. We're doing this to help him get his money for his treatments. So if you can find it in your heart, there's a link on our website, sleeperwire.com. Go there, donate a couple bucks if you can. I know everyone would really appreciate it. And that leads us into our final thing, the Sleeperwire Pro-Am, which is the first time we get to talk about on the Great Debate Show, which is amazing. It's this league that we're doing. If you haven't heard of it, I'm surprised, but if you haven't heard of it, it's a league that you can be in with people who do fantasy football for a living, the pros, people who do podcasts, people who write, people who run apps. We've got NFL's Marcus Grant and Matt Harmon. We've got Roto experts Jake Seeley. We've got the Dynasty Nerds. We've got Sleeperbot. We've got Pony Keg Sports. We've got the Fantasy Football Fellas. 515 Fantasy Football from ESPN Radio. Eat Sleep Fantasy. Clock Dodgers, Dynasty Happy Hour, the Fantasy Life app. You can be a part of this league. You can play against all of us. And all you have to do, go to Rob's GoFundMe page, and you can just, once again, sleeperwire.com, you can look at the league on there. Every $10 donation gets you a raffle ticket. So if you donate $20, you get 2 raffle tickets to be in this league. It's a great cause. We don't see a cent of it. It all goes towards Rob and helping him get his treatments. So make sure you go there. Donate some money, and you get to play in a great league. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We will see you guys next time.
Take care.